everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am very excited about today's video. Why? Because I'm talking about one of my favorite topics of all time, Disney. So if you want to rewind back a couple of videos, I done a video all about in-flight packing essentials for long haul flights because I was going on a long haul flight to Florida and it was my first time in Walt Disney World. And I'm not gonna lie, I done a lot of geeking out when I was planning that trip. Basically, there was a lot of YouTube videos watched in order to plan what we were doing, what I should pack, where we should go. But when I was doing all of my geeking out, I do have to say I found it really hard to find one video that told me everything that I needed to know for my first trip to Walt Disney World. So that is what today's video is all about, everything that you need to know for your first trip to Walt Disney World. So if you're planning your first trip to Walt Disney World this year or next year or sometime in the future, or if you just want to know a bit more about going to Walt Disney World, keep on watching. Let's go. Tip number one when planning your first trip to Walt Disney World is pick the time of year that you go really strategically. So obviously in Walt Disney World there is going to be times of the year where it's really busy and also times of the year where it's going to be a little less hectic. So we went in November from the 12th to the 22nd. And I think we got a really good indication of what it's like when it's nice and quiet and when it's pretty crazy. We went home just before Thanksgiving break kicked in, but there was a couple of days at the start of Thanksgiving week where obviously kids had been taken off on holidays early. So everybody seemed to have gone to Walt Disney World and there was a huge change in the amount of people that were in the parks. So if there is any way possible that you can plan your holiday around a quiet time of the year, I would totally recommend it. That way there's still a bit of a buzz in the parks, but there's going to be way shorter wait times for rides, so you're going to get to ride them more often than you would when it's busy. They also tend to do more deals at quiet times of the year, so you might have like meal plan deals or deals on hotels. Ours was that we got a free memory maker included in our package, which I will get onto a bit more later. And we also got a 14-day ticket for the price of a 7-day ticket. Now we were only going for 10 days, but it still worked out cheaper because we got a 10-day ticket for the price of a 7-day ticket. So yeah, if you can and if it works with your schedule, try and organize your trip around a quieter time of the year. But if you can't, it's no big deal. It just gives you more time to get around everything that you want to get around. And if you want to go on a ride like 10 times in one day, you can do that. Tip number two for your first trip to Walt Disney World is all about packing, and it is pretty much to pack every single piece of comfortable clothing and footwear that you own. It's pretty straightforward when it comes to clothes. Florida is kind of hot all year round, so you just got to take clothes that are comfortable and lightweight for walking around the parks. But do bear in mind that if you're going in the winter months that it can get really cold in the evenings, and that was something that I was not prepared for. So when we went during the day, it was about 28 degrees Celsius, and then in the evenings, it decided to drop down to like 4 degrees, and I was freezing my little butt off. I was so glad then that I had taken jeans with me, and I had taken tights, and I had taken a bomber jacket because I was in some way warm. But I do recommend that if you're going in the winter, take boots with you and take a coat of some sort so that you are prepared for the cold evenings. Tip number three is all about how much time you're going to need to get around all of the parks. So Walt Disney World has 4 parks and 2 water parks. So you have Magic Kingdom, Animal Kingdom, Epcot, Hollywood Studios, Blizzard Beach and Typhoon Lagoon. So the last 2 are their water parks. We went in the winter time, and I think in off-peak seasons in general there's going to be one of the water parks closed. So just keep that in mind if you're going. One of them is most likely going to be under renovations. We actually didn't spend any time in the water parks because that just wasn't something that we wanted to do. We just kind of wanted to spend it in the dry parks. So yeah, I would recommend doing 2 days in Magic Kingdom and then 1 day in all of the rest of the parks. Magic Kingdom is the main park, so you're probably going to want to spend more than 1 day there. On top of that, if you're not staying on site at Disney and you're only visiting for a day, most people are going to want to spend that day in Magic Kingdom, so it tends to be the busier park as well. So for that reason, you're probably going to want to spend 2 days there. We also had a park hopper ticket, so we kind of spent a day in each park, and then for the rest of our trip we kind of went to one park in the morning and then one park in the evening, so that made it super easy to get around everything that we wanted to do. Tip number 4 is about fast passes, the best thing in the entire world if you use them properly. So use your fast passes, because I know some people look at fast passes and they're like, that looks really confusing, and they don't use them at all, but they're super handy. I think you can actually book them up to 90 days in advance of your trip, and I would definitely recommend doing that because fast passes book out really quickly. Well, the fast pass is for the good things anyway, so make sure to book your fast passes as soon as you can, and book them, as I said, wisely. So when I say book your fast passes wisely, myself and Brian kind of figured out a way of using fast passes to our advantage towards the end of our trip. So we started booking fast passes for rides that we didn't really want to go on. I know that sounds really stupid, but we did want to go on those rides, just not as much as other ones. So say for rides like Rock and Roller Coaster or Tower of Terror or Toy Story Midway Mania, we didn't really mind queuing for those because we really wanted to go on them. But for other rides like Peter Pan or It's a Small World, they usually have humongous wait lines. And I know why, because all of the little kids can go on those, and the wait times for those were like, they were crazy. They were like 2 hours long or something, and that was an off-peak season, so I wouldn't want to know what that's like in a busy time. So yeah, you don't want to queue for 2 hours for rides like Peter Pan or It's a Small World. They're really nice rides to go on, but you just don't want to queue for that long for them. My next tip, I don't know what number I'm on anymore, but it is all about food. Walt Disney World has a lot of restaurants, and I had loads of different recommendations from people of places to go to eat. So I had loads of places that I wanted to go try out, but Walt Disney World restaurants, like everything else in Walt Disney World, book out really quickly. So you're actually able to book Walt Disney World restaurants up to 180 days in advance of your trip, and I know that sounds freaking crazy, but apparently everybody does it. I actually went to book tables in restaurants probably like 90 days in advance when I was doing my fast passes, and there were very few restaurants that I could actually book tables in at that stage. So restaurants like Be Our Guest and Cinderella's Royal Table are really popular restaurants, and they book out so far in advance, it is actually ridiculous. So if you want to go to either of those, I would definitely recommend booking as soon as you possibly can. Walking in and getting seated straight away in Walt Disney World is pretty much just not a thing that happens. So even for lunch, if there's somewhere in specific that you want to go, book it. But there is a little kind of loophole that I figured out for booking restaurants while we were there. So as you can probably tell, I didn't get any bookings that I wanted, so we kind of just had to wing it when we got there. So when you're booking dinner reservations in Walt Disney World, there's a free 24-hour cancellation policy. So basically what that means is if you book your restaurant and you decide that you're going to cancel it 24 hours in advance of that reservation, you don't have to pay anything for it. So what people tend to do is completely overbook restaurants. So they just book a load of restaurants that they know they're probably not going to get to, but they know that if they cancel it 24 hours before the reservation, they don't have to pay for it. So if you go on to the My Disney Experience app where you do all of your dining reservations, if you go onto it like at about 6 p.m. or 7:30 p.m. the night before you want to go somewhere, lots of people tend to start cancelling, so lots of reservations start to become free. Not free, but available. Also, if you're looking for recommendations on places to eat, there are 2 places that we thought were really good. One is a table service and one is like a quick service takeaway kind of thing. So the table service place that we thought was amazing was the Boathouse in Disney Springs. please go. It's so good. Their bread is amazing. So it's a little bit more pricey than other places, but I think it's totally worth it when you look at what you're paying for, like burgers and chips and stuff like that. So this place kind of has a mixture of everything. You can get salads, you can get fish, you can get steak, you can get burgers, whatever you want, they probably have it, but it's amazing. It's really nice. And also, if you want something a little bit different from your regular takeaway, and you don't want like burgers and chips and things like that, Yak and Yeti in Animal Kingdom is so nice. They do kind of Asian food, I'd say. They have like fried rice, they have like sticky honey chicken and stuff, and it's amazing. It's really nice. It's nice to have a break from eating burgers and chicken nuggets and things like that on a daily basis. I have completely lost track of numbers at this stage, but my next tip is actually not about Walt Disney World, but about Universal Studios. So most likely when you are planning a Walt Disney World trip, you're gonna want to try and get in Universal Studios too. And I was really confused about how I was supposed to get from Disney to Universal and what was the best way to go about doing that. And I could not for the life of me find a video that told me how to do that. So now I know. So if you're staying in a Disney hotel, there are kind of 3 different ways of going to Universal Studios. So obviously if you have a car, if you've rented one, you can drive that car to Universal. But you can also get a taxi or an Uber from your hotel, or the bus that runs from Disney Springs to Universal Studios. So obviously there's going to be a bit of a difference between getting the taxi / Uber or the bus. So the bus is going to be cheaper, but is going to take a bit longer to get there. And the taxi / Uber is going to be more expensive, but you're going to get there quicker. So myself and Brian opted to get the taxi from the hotel, but it is expensive. It's about $40 to get there and $40 to get back to the hotel again. But we really wanted to just get there. We didn't want to have to wait around or get a bus from our hotel to Disney Springs and then get another bus from Disney Springs to Universal and to have to wait then on a bus to get back. We kind of just wanted to be able to go when we wanted to go and then leave when we wanted to leave. So it's kind of just a matter of working out what works best for you. Another question that I really wanted answered before I went was, can I get the 2 parks in Universal done in one day? And I looked and looked through videos but could not get an answer for this. So I started asking loads and loads of people and I got loads of different answers. So some people were saying, no, you need 2 days to do the 2 parks. And then some other people were saying, oh no, you can definitely get it done in one day. And my opinion is that if you go in an off-peak season, preferably midweek, and you get a park hopper ticket, you can 110% get the 2 parks done in one day. Now I'm sure if you were there during the summer, it probably would take more time to get around the parks because there's obviously more people there. But as I said, we were there in off-peak season, we had a park hopper ticket, and we also had the little pass to jump the queue. So like the Universal Studios version of a fast pass. So we got around both parks in one day, and we also got to ride a few of the things that we wanted to go on a couple of times. So you can definitely get the 2 parks done in one day if you're there in off-peak season, if you just put your mind to it. So my very last tip for planning your first trip to Walt Disney World, I kind of touched on it earlier on, but it is to purchase the Memory Maker. The Memory Maker is basically a photo pass system. So when you're in Walt Disney World, you'll have your little magic band, and what happens is when you're on a ride and you get your photo taken, or when you are in the parks and you get your picture taken by the professional photographers in Disney, what you do is you just scan your magic band, or there's a little card, I think, if you don't have the magic band, you scan that with the photographer, and basically the photo goes straight from the photographer to your My Disney Experience app, where you can download all of your photos and you can print them as many times as you want. I think it's $169 if you buy it before you go and $200 if you buy it when you get there. And I know that sounds like a lot of money. It actually was included in our package, so we got it for free. And to be totally honest with you, if I didn't know what it was before I went, I don't think I would have added it to our package, because $169 would have looked like a lot of money to me before we went. but it is so worth it because you get such amazing pictures. So the way I justify it is, one, you don't really need to take your camera with you because there are photographers all around Disney in loads of different locations that can take your photograph for you, and they have a professional camera, so you don't have to give your camera to a stranger or your phone to a stranger to take a photograph of your family. And then secondly, you can get as many photographs as you want. And I mean, if you want 400 photographs, you can get 400 photographs and you only have to pay $169 for it. And all of those photographs are professional photographs. Oh, also on some of your rides, you can actually get videos onto your memory maker of you on the ride, which is really cool. And then some of the photographers can actually animate your photographs. So in different parks, there's different photo ops for this. I know in Animal Kingdom, the photographer made Brian like do this with his arm. And then when the photograph came through to the My Disney Experience app, Brian had an insect on his arm. And then in Epcot, the photographer made Brian, it's always Brian, they made him put his arm up in the air. And then when the photograph came through to the My Disney Experience app, he had balloons in his hand. They're just really fun little things to have and lovely memories, so I would totally recommend purchasing the memory maker if it's not already included in your package. If it is, you are in for a good time. So those are all the tips that I have for you when you're planning your first trip to Walt Disney World. If you are planning it this year or if you're going this year, I am so jealous. I really wish I was going, but Brian said no. Hopefully this is useful to you because I know I would have found it super useful if I had this before we were going, because I wouldn't have had to troll through like 50 different videos to find out some information. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to click the little subscribe button and give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and I will see you all again in my next video. Bye!